And hello,
Stop. Combo breaker.
Gentlemen.
How does it feel to be cucked in the first second of this episode?
See, you could have cucked me, but what actually ended up happening was, even though you told me to stop, I went... No, I'm not going to make that joke off the fucking way. That's fucking awful. Anyway.
Well, I had a dream last night.
Okay.
It's kind of short. So in my dream, I went to my bathroom mirror, and I was in desperate need of a haircut because my hair was really shaggy, and it was actually covering my face.
Oh, that's a first.
So I went to peel the hair away from my face, put it over my head, only to reveal underneath all of my hair, including a big bushy beard, was white, and it looked like Santa Claus. Then I woke up.
Santa Claus?
So, what does this mean?
What does this mean? He asks. I mean, it's Christmas in July. Nick has a heart full of gold to give out to all the little children of the world.
Maybe I'm getting old.
Maybe that. I mean, hey, look. Think of it like this: you're growing hair instead of losing it, so that's a good thing.
That's true.
I could comment on the very violent, very surreal, very Hotline Miami / gladiatorial type deal dreams I've been having. Thankfully, I'm not killed in any of them, but it's very toxic, very competitive. I don't know if I'm going insane or this virus isolation is getting me a little topsy-turvy, but, you know, I'll keep it to myself and try to immigrate. That's not even a word. I just toyed that up right now. Immigrate into the energy that we're going to have the topic for today. So, Nick, is there anything else, or can we go right into it?
Let's go right into it. We have a new gimmick this time.
New gimmick. It's not top 10, but we are giving you a nice little gimmick.
So this is kind of an elaboration on the famous meme that you can connect a streamlined straight line of events from the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand spiraling into World War I to the creation of hentai anime.
A butterfly effect, if you will.
Yes, exactly. To summarize that thing real quick, you go from Ferdinand being assassinated to this being the primary influence on the start of World War I exploding in Europe, which led to, at the end of the war, a state of economic disaster in Germany, which allowed the Nazi Party to rise, creating World War II, which brought in the Axis powers of Japan. And upon Pearl Harbor, America entered the war, which led to the atomic bombings. It led to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And afterwards, American occupation of post-war Japan. There were a few years of censorship on Japanese media where most Japanese were exposed to American culture, or at least American films, American TV, and comic books, which directly influenced the style of Japanese animation. And then once Americans left the country and they were able to develop on their own into the future, anime exploded. The art style was set in stone and continued to evolve from there. But a combination of the effects of World War II creating a surreal outlook on life in a lot of civilians and these strict censorship laws that Japan was now imposing on the media, they couldn't directly go into pornography. They had to kind of find a way around it. And that included, rather than having actual, let's see, instead of actual phalluses penetrating, you would have tentacles, and that is the creation. So it's a direct correlation from assassinating Ferdinand to the creation of this art form.
Do you think the nuclear bomb, like let's say if it was a nuclear bomb, let's say they were regular bombs, do you think like the radiation or the effect of radiation had any effect on the production of hentai?
I mean, maybe you could make a case for that.
Like the Godzilla.
I mean, we know
Godzilla.
We know fire bombings killed more people than atomic bombs.
No, I'm sure, but
just the absolute destruction of those events is unparalleled.
Do you think the first hentai story with the hentai tentacles, do you think that the octopus was irradiated, giving them supernatural powers and conscious, ending up to do what they do in hentai?
Okay, so we're getting to the lore, like a Godzilla-esque lore.
I guess we have to like figure out the history, the very origins of the first.
Let's see if
like
these hentai creatures are kaiju, then absolutely.
Like, was the first hentai artist literally called Honda Hentai?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you would. Well, the one wrench that you can throw into this meme is that this type of artistic expression existed centuries before World War II. You go all the way back to Edo, Japan, with the artist Hokusai, who created woodblock art involving octopuses and squids, any kind of tentacled creatures. Oh. And this goes back centuries.
Okay. This satiates my appetite.
Yum.
Just like the anime protagonist in a hentai. Anyway.
You like calamari, Gabe?
I don't like putting fish eggs in me. No, I don't like it.
No, not caviar. Calamari is just like squid.
Oh, I don't know if I've tried it.
I love it. It's one of my favorite foods. You can get it grilled or fried. And it makes me wonder, do you know how huge some of these hentai creatures are? Could you imagine the flavor of just getting one of those, stopping them on a grill, and then putting, like a light teriyaki sauce,
and then putting that flavorful, massive tentacle in your mouth? Is that what you're trying to get at, Nick? And sucking its succulent juices, and getting it down to your stomach, those sweet teriyaki juices. Is that
These are the jokes, folks?
Okay.
I put them up and you knock them down.
Yeah. Today we're gonna we looked for our own versions of Archduke Ferdinand II hentai, our own butterfly effects in
our own
history.
Domino effect stories.
Yes. So, Nick, would you like to go first, or shall I?
Why don't we leave it up to fate?
Fate, okay.
I believe we've done this before. I can flip a coin.
I have an actual coin. I have an actual coin here with me. You could hear it this time.
Okay.
So, you want heads or do you want tails?
Well, I still am just taking your word for it, but I'll call tails.
All right, here we go.
Like the fox.
Well, it's heads.
Hey, that sounded like 8 coins.
Eight coins? What? Okay,
and they
I'll do
all
it again.
landed on tails.
Okay, let me check. Oh, we got an inception spin.
Holy shit.
Tails.
Oh my god.
All right.
Well, it's 2 out of 3.
Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Heads.
All right. Heads wins.
Heads wins. So that means I get to choose. So, Nick, you go first.
All right. So, I put some research into this. It's a pretty detailed domino effect story that can be divided into 3 sections. And it all starts with Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Well, I'm happy that we didn't end up with the same things. So, let's continue.
Okay. Once upon a time, Matt and Trey were college roommates. They got together. They liked each other's style of raunchy humor and passion for really low effort but still humorous paper cut animation. And they created kind of a pilot version of South Park, which existed for the next few years as a bootleg VHS copy that was kind of an inside joke in Hollywood. A lot of Hollywood actors or producers would circulate this bootleg VHS thinking it was the funniest shit. Bob Odenkirk of Better Call Saul was one of the biggest pushers of this ancient meme. But it gained a reputation over time, and Comedy Central gave them the green light to make South Park as a series, and they became more influential and well-known creators.
Okay.
So, flash forward a little bit. Shows going on. Matt and Trey have a few other ideas. They've experimented with musicals. They've branched out into feature films, and eventually they worked on a 1998, I believe, movie called Basketball. Not particularly well received, but there was one moment in the film where I believe Matt, because the the two personalities appear in the film as the main characters. He's caught in an embarrassing situation, and as he runs out of the room, he says, "Derp." This is the first acknowledged use of the word derp in any sort of media. And
how do you know this? How can you verify that?
You can't.
Okay, great.
But at least for Matt and Trey, it was the first real time that derp appeared because it appeared several more times in later South Park episodes.
Okay.
Most famously, the Rob Schneider trailer. Yes, exactly.
Rob Schneider. Go ahead.
So it kind of became an inside joke on their shows, on their productions, and you could say branched out into internet culture to the point where on early 2000s image boards and forums and just general websites where anyone could comment, derp became a very early meme. Herp derp usually posted in response to someone doing or acting very dumb, or maybe replying to someone who didn't make sense or that you just disagreed with.
Right. It would end up
very easy insult.
It would end up being a part of the integrating into the Rage Comics type memes era.
Man, I forgot about that. Like, you're absolutely right.
That was the precursor to the current Wojak / Pepe 2010s era.
Yeah, all the T-shirt Rage Comics, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely right.
Which I would have to comment, they were very expressive, and I guess we ended up having more... I don't want to say we ended up having more detail with this current meme era, but we've had more... they ended up being less cartoonish and more towards realism, I would have to say. Like, Feels Guy actually looks like the head of an actual...
He has
human.
More details.
Yeah.
It might just be coincidence.
Yeah.
But, and then, Pepe was actually drawn by an actual artist.
To be honest, a lot of those, like the Me Gusta face, a bunch of other things, some of them were just redraws of actual people, but like Me Gusta face, Trollfish, like those look like it took from actual effort from actual artists to make, even though they were, more cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go ahead. I'm derailing you.
That's fine. Going back to it. Fall of 2010, a bunch of losers start watching My Little Pony.
Yes.
And first episode,
the best show.
There is an animation error on one of the characters so that she appears with eyes facing in opposite directions. And obviously, derp is already a meme. So, no, I cannot. I can look at my nose.
Okay.
But not the other way.
Okay.
So they name her Derpy, becomes kind of a fan inside joke. And as the show continues, the character popularity grows to the point where in season 2, she actually appears as a speaking character with that name. And fans are excited, but a bunch of soccer moms get very upset because they believe that the term derp is a slur for making fun of disabled people.
This is before the whole, I'd say this is the early 2010s, so this is before the whole offended saga starts.
This is before that. This is before Gamergate. It's like...
So this is very
2012.
Early. Okay.
This is like January, February 2012.
Okay.
But it's coming. Thinking about it, I'm not sure if you can actually make this connection. Like the term derp, to me, it was never really meant to be synonymous with retarded. It was kind of clean as far as I'm concerned. But you know what?
I mean, I would assume, like, with I'm just going to say it for the audience, not just to say it in context, like the word retarded is usually meant for people who do dumb stuff, but it's meant to be offensive if you actually meant it towards someone that was mentally handicapped. Usually a lot of kids, a lot of regular people use it for someone that's done something really stupid and they should know better. But in this case,
right. But
in this case,
playing
it's
devil's
like
playing devil's advocate for a bit, I could kind of see how someone could take offense to the cross-eyed character thing, because that's been in cartoons for years.
Yeah.
And I guess it's based on a real condition, or people really have features like that.
I mean, do you think like those people like characterize himself with the it clown when he does that?
Oh. Okay. So we need. Okay. So it's completely silly. It's completely ridiculous.
Yes.
If you plug your nose, you blow out your cheeks, and you do a cross-eyed expression toward your nose, you're doing derp.
Okay.
It's like you're blowing bubbles. You're being silly.
Right.
It's childish, but innocent.
Okay. So,
but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. There were enough soccer moms complaining about it that this episode was actually, it was kind of like pulled and then re-uploaded with edits made so that her eyes were facing the right way. She was called something else and had a different voice actor.
Okay, so are we in part 2 of your long-winded conspiracy butterfly effect?
Part 2 was the pony introduction.
Okay, so now we're on to part 3. Okay,
we're getting there. We're in the bridge.
All right.
Okay. So you would think this would be the end of the story. It's like the creators put her in an episode. Soccer moms cried about it, and then they pulled the episode. But knowing how obsessed and childish and pathetic internet dwellers are, what do you think the response from the fans was?
Fuck off.
I'm kind of going for something a little more dramatic. Think about current internet, because this is like early 2012. We're getting into the realm of Twitter and social media and all these like people rallying cries, stuff like that.
Well, bronies aren't too much furry, so they wouldn't start replying with porn pictures of their favorite clops.
Yeah.
So let's see. There could be a whole hashtag/petition, or
yeah, that's basically what happened.
Okay.
You're right. It didn't get into anything graphic or overly dramatic, but it became a movement. They were unable to let it go, and they called this a gate, one of the famous Watergate, Gamergate, gate.
So what?
Things.
Derpgate or something?
Yeah, basically.
Derpygate. Okay, that's okay. Whatever.
So it became this rallying cry to, I guess, save the character. I don't know the logistics. It doesn't really make any sense.
Okay.
It was basically just a glorified hashtag.
All right.
But do you know what was also happening around early 2012? And this is part 3.
End of the world mania.
Yes.
Obama's second election. I would assume the World Cup and the Olympics. Shit.
Well,
I mean,
a lot did happen.
It's a divisible by 4 year, so
yeah,
that's usually a lot of stuff happens.
That's usually a big year, right? You're absolutely right. Everything you said is true. A lot happened in 2012, but something that eclipses all of them in importance and impact was the Nostalgia Critic was filming To Boldly Flee.
Oh my fucking god! Okay.
So. To Boldly Flee, the third Nostalgia Critic feature film to include all of the cast members of his website.
For the last time.
Underway for the last time. It was underway, and it had the biggest cast of them all, including a character no one remembers and no one watched called 8-Bit Mickey. So, history of 8-Bit Mickey. He started out as a very minor video creator for the organization Screw Attack. They're a Texas-based video game company, most famous at the time for promoting Jane Rolfe's Angry Video Game Nerd series. And more recently, yes, the top 10s. More recently, they initiated the Death Battle series, which actually killed the show because it was the only show people cared about. But that show is continuing while Screw Attack is defunct. Yeah. However, there was a noticeable split around the time, about a year before To Boldly Flee, where one of the creators, Handsome Tom, split to join Doug Walker, and he brought with him 8-Bit Mickey for some fucking reason.
Okay.
So they had a very short-lived series, I think, called Game Heroes, where 8-Bit Mickey would occasionally pop up. But I guess at the time that this whole gate was happening, 8-Bit Mickey was a closet brony. This never came up in any of the videos, but the gate, the derp gate, was too strong to ignore. So when he went to the filming of To Boldly Flee, he packed as his only costume a t-shirt featuring this character. And it appears in the film. The only thing is, you would expect someone wearing such an embarrassing shirt to be brought up in the context of the movie. Even if it's just a one-time joke, you would expect people to take notice to something so obvious. But instead, it's just never mentioned, which made a lot of people confused. And a lot of people kind of, I want to say turned off, but put it this way. Mickey was really into this show at the time, and I think it had an effect on the content he was making. Like, he was trying to branch out into making pony content instead of game content, which created creative clash of sorts.
Now, to stop your thought process, I need to ask. You said that was his only costume, right?
Well, his only costume, yeah, for showing up in the video.
So does that mean, like, I doubt To Boldly Flee was all shot in one day, even though it looks like it. But I doubt it was all done in one day to do all that. So, in the end, if he was wearing the same shirt for the next, like, 3 days, how, like, and a lot of other cast members did that, how do you think To Boldly Flee smelled?
How do you think? And you know all those, like, outdoor shoots, too, where Doug is in, like, a full Judge Dredd costume?
Right.
Gotta sweat, man.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine I think they filmed the whole thing in like a week, or at least shot all the footage.
So a week, goddamn. They better have like several. They better have like several laundry. Someone has to have several laundry things on set. Jesus.
Could you imagine being on an airplane next to someone who just shot To Boldly Flee and is returning home wearing the same clothes?
Hopefully they washed, or otherwise.
Yeah. Hopefully they brought a second set of clothes for that day. I didn't even think about that, but I'm pretty sure all the characters wear the same clothes.
All right, so continue.
So I'm not going to imply this was the only factor in them losing views and popularity on their show, but it's the funniest reason. So I'm kind of pushing it up. At some point, Game Heroes was no more, and they were unable to produce more videos. People were just not watching the show. There were a bunch of controversies with the channel in general. There was a big split between the gaming creators and the rest of the content creators. And this was way before like all of the canceled Doug Walker stuff happened. This was like around the time of Spoonie or Angry Joe splitting from the site to do his own YouTube thing.
So it's not really controversy. It's just everyone splitting up.
It's definitely a controversy like for the creators, but not for the fans.
I mean, like, what? Like, the film guys didn't think the game guys actually had anything legit, or what?
I think it was like the game stuff was not being pushed enough on the site.
Oh, okay, so never mind. Then that makes sense.
Yeah. But they split, and it just didn't last very long. They eventually stopped. And all this stuff was really taking a toll on Mickey. He experienced like a period of alcoholism. He was a bona fide alcoholic. And he was just experiencing depression, becoming overweight, and eventually he was able to catch himself. He went sober. He lost a lot of that weight. It took a toll on him, and he had to go into surgery because of intestinal problems.
Okay.
They actually removed his large intestine, and he had to ship him to a bag for a while. Okay. Yeah. Over the years since then, he really has improved he really has improved in a lot of sense. Like, at the time he was kind of homeless and he had to move back in with his parents, but now he truly seems like he's happy. He has a small but dedicated amount of fans who watch his own content, which he mostly does on Twitch and on his personal YouTube channel.
Thank you for this shameless plug-in, but please, I must know, Nick, where is this building up to?
Well, no, I was like, I'm just giving a little bit of a happy ending to say that this isn't just a depressing end.
All right.
But that is the end of my domino effect.
Are you
well, think about it. One person saying the word derp in 1998 led to a series of events that caused a man to become homeless and lose a vital organ.
Wait a second. I guess I should be reviewing your thing. So let's see. Trey Parker and Stone make South Park DVD that ends up becoming a series using the word derp, then goes to meme format, then My Little Pony starts.
Well, even more than that in the
and then
Be okay.
Derpy Derp,
Okay.
Derpy Derp, the pony happens, soccer moms, and then for some reason he decides to have there's the character becomes popular. He decides to wear it for fuck all and
to
boldly
support the
flee.
protests.
Of course, to support the protests. Which now this is where I'm gonna critique you a little bit. Where does so Mickey ends up becoming part of the site, but then the split happens. I gotta ask, what is the derp thing and the sites kind of splitting off happen in that sense? Where's that connection?
Well, I alluded to it when I said I'm kind of propping this up more than other factors because I believe behind the scenes he was trying to branch out into making videos about the show instead of being gaming centric.
Oh.
And none of the other people he worked with liked this idea. They nixed it, which probably added to his depression. And I think he left on his own terms.
Okay. This makes sense. Well, I'm happy that I understand this connection. Then I like that this turned out to be okay.
Me too.
I give this I'd say a B plus, but I'm happy that this came with a happy ending.
Rip. Okay, but it's just a warning. If the camera is on you, be very careful what you say, because one wrong word could completely destroy a man's life 10 years from now. Or 20 years from
now. I was going to say ninja. Anyway. Okay, now that's good. Is there any more comments or when you were trying to come up with this at all?
The 8-Bit Mickey stuff was the result of research because he has his own blog where he posts all this stuff and it goes back several years. I'm not yes, I am kind of snooping in on him, but he voiced this stuff out there. He wanted people to know what he was going through.
Right.
And I'm glad that it turned out good for him because that means in hindsight, you can look at it as a comeback story. But I was mostly just amazed and inspired by the fact this all could be traced down to one word, which is basically just dumb college humor type improv, just a random word that means nothing in the context of someone being embarrassed and making a swift exit out of the room and just uttering the phrase derp. And that moment led to a domino effect of tragedy and a comeback.
Well, perfect. Okay. I give you a little more, A minus.
Nice.
So okay. Now I'm gonna go into mine, but before I drank a lot of coffee so I could wake up. So now I need to use the restroom. So I'll be back in 2 minutes.
All right.
All right.
Little does Gabe know that when he's telling his story, I am going to wait for a magic word. The magic word is... Hi, Gabe.
Hi. Okay. So, now it is my turn. Now, to give a little bit of preface, I would say, like how Nick had done it, where he started off with the first event, but he never said where it would lead to. I shall do the same for mine.
Okay, good.
All right. So, my one starts with Henry VIII could not get the good puss. Now, Nick, what is the thing you can think of where I will end up?
Well, I would suspect this could be just a straightforward retelling of Henry VIII's life and his many different wives, reasons for getting them all. And maybe you could even have this lead to the split from the Roman Church, although that was kind of going as this was happening. That was the reason for him pursuing another wife. But I'm open to the fact this could go in a completely different direction. So
No,
I'll keep myself in suspense.
well, you are able to get only the first part right, but that is only the first part because
Okay.
I was trying to be much more traditional in the sense of the butterfly effect, trying to go historical, bounding centuries and centuries more to this modern day period. So,
Okay, you went for the maximalist approach. I went for the minimalist.
yes. Okay, so let's start. Henry VIII, also known as Bryce from the 15th
Also known
century,
as Bryce.
could not get that good puss. So, Henry VIII was trying to get an heir all this time. He couldn't get a good son heir. Sometimes the woman wouldn't put out, and sometimes all they came out was a girl.
Yeah.
And
Which
so
is disappointing for him.
And so he, in order to get all these different wives, these divorces, he tried with the Catholic Church, the Pope, the Vatican, to get a divorce. But the Pope was like, nah, ain't gonna happen. And so the guy decides, you know what? Fuck you. I'm gonna separate from the church. I'm gonna make our own church, Church of England. And this is like, apart from Martin Luther, who helped start that whole thing, the Church of England kind of solidified it for the whole big England, which would then, there are like several different factors that are created from this. For instance, it's basically helped find a foundation with the Renaissance, with a lot of writers. One of them being a new Church of England, like this is like 30 years after the Church of England is created. A Church of England pastor called I gotta get my notes out. Open notes.
You're
Fuck,
slipping.
they won't work here.
You're losing points by the second.
No. I gotta get. Forgot.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Your credit score is tumbling down in real time. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay, so it did plenty of things. We're just going to start with the first tree branch, which is this pastor was known by the name of Francis Godwin, who had written a book of travels that he had done, and he named it "The Man on the Moon," with "moon" spelled with an E on the end. This man, not only was it just travels, but he ended up implementing science into it, using facts from, say, Copernicus, not the football one, but the good one, the Galileo. A bunch of things that the church kind of excommunicated these people from and just outright banished. And because of the Church of England was kind of less stringent than the Catholic Church, a lot of these Renaissance, these sci-fi beginnings, basically these
sci-fi.
Well, not well. It is literally called not sci-fi. I'm sorry. He implemented science into it, and so the guy, I forgot, Jonathan Swift, the guy that made Gulliver's Travels, creates Gulliver's Travels and actually implements putting sci-fi into the travels. He uses the realistic travels that implemented science. He ended up using that as a springboard to create his literal science fiction stories that were a major popular thing that sold out all across England.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there just for 1 second. So, yes, Jonathan Swift, a fiction writer who incorporated a lot of scientific ideas into his stories. Science fiction.
Yes.
But if you go before that, if you're just looking at the persecuted scientists like Galileo, Copernicus, people you mentioned, could you say that from the church's perspective, they were propagating science fiction? If you were a commoner who worshipped the church and then you heard about Galileo, would you classify his work as sci-fi? Did Galileo have sci-fi fans?
Oh my God.
If you had an organization of scientists in a church doctored time period, would that be considered a sci-fi convention?
I mean, I guess their word for it wasn't fiction, it was blasphemy. So if you switch those words, then yes, I do believe that if this was the 2000s, that they were using 2000s words.
Okay.
And they were saying instead of blasphemy, they were saying, "Man, this is total fiction. Fuck you." Then yes, I would agree that the Catholic Church would have called their stuff science fiction. or straight up,
So,
or
okay.
like spirit science type shit.
So it sounds like the answer is yes, but only from my point of view.
From a certain point of view, just like the Sith.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. And so, okay. And
Okay.
the Gulliver's Travels, along with many other things of the Renaissance that helped propagate this new genre of quote unquote science fiction, help create many things like serials that we would end up seeing from comics, or from stories to comics to children's stories, and then ended up into films, and then ultimate leading up to something. But I'm not going to stop there, and I'm going to go to a second branch of this
Okay.
of the Church of England.
Flashback.
Another flashback where
Oh
the Church of
my
England
God, right.
ends up creating Puritans, because the Puritans think the new Church of England isn't, as Catholic as the Catholic Church. Those Puritans end up going because they're so butthurt that they feel like they're not even being persecuted. All that shit you learned in grade school is like they're hurting us. No, there was like, no, we
Gabe,
need our
how
own
could you,
Puritans.
Gabe? Stop it, Gabe.
What?
Gabe, I'm not going to let that offensive slur of disabled people go by unnoticed.
Which one? I did a few.
The herp and derp. How could you?
It was, basically, they ended up being so butthurt that they had to end up doing what the Vikings did and go to America instead of, the top part of Canada. They actually go to somewhere in Massachusetts they end up calling Plymouth, which, while plenty of people discovered back in the olden days, they ended up literally migrating to it and starting this whole migration to America. Through all the centuries, now that America is being populated, now that it is becoming a cultural center, especially in the 1900s,
Yes.
1950s, if we're going to be more exact, that it's becoming a cultural powerhouse, the real country of the world.
1950s? Okay.
Specifically the 1950s, after the World War. And
okay.
all this, and then science fiction, especially in the 1900s, has started coming up in popularity. We can all come into the amalgamation of, can you guess the title I'm going to tell you? You got science fiction and American. What?
Sci-fi, America. Well, I mean,
I'll give
Star
you one
Wars,
guess.
Star Trek.
There we go. Star Trek. We got
Okay.
Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. Now, while Gene Roddenberry did use Gulliver's Travels in order to make Star Trek, he didn't make it out of any love. He was a producer who was trying to figure out something to make money from, and so he chose Star Trek, basically. Star Trek becomes pretty much a big success at that time, ends up creating a culture, and throughout the decades, you have TNG happening after this huge popularity spike back in the 60s, and TNG is also successful. So successful that it creates several spin-offs. One of them being Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
Okay. Now, along with Voyager, you have the first two seasons. Again, like many of the new 80s generation, the first two seasons really isn't anything that great. So they always end up adding a new character, a new spin on it, and they introduce the character, the half human, half Borg, 6 of 9. Do you have an image of what 6 of 9 looks like, Nick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so 6 of 9. Now, I even haven't seen Fall Voyager to even see her, but you know the character. It's one of the most popular characters of that spin-off series. She even had
You mean 7 of 9?
I guess I forget. I think I just mixed up 6 of 9 for sexual reasons. Anyway, 7 of 9. So she is one of the fan favorites of that series. Along this case, the actress, I don't remember her name, unfortunately. You can take off points for that.
Sure. Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan.
Only because I'm looking at Wikipedia.
No, of course. Bastard. So we got 7 of 9. Jerry Ryan ends up marrying a Republican politician from Illinois.
Okay.
Now, there's a hot race for the Senate with some nobody named, I don't know, some guy named Obama?
Some no one.
Some no one named Obama. So it's a fierce competition. Obama might have the incumbent, but this guy he doesn't even have the incumbent. He's just a startup at the moment. He's pretty much nobody. No one knew Obama back then. And the senator known as Jack Ryan was favoring in the polls, and he had a favorable outlook. Unfortunately, in the early
You mean Paul Ryan?
No, Jack Ryan. Literally the fucking character that Tom Cruise played. The name of is the name. And so what happens? What happens is something comes out where there's a political scandal where he tried to get Jerry Ryan to have sex in a swingers club. It comes out that happens, and he has to end up like, I forget, it was dropping out or just completely like going out. They tried to get several replacements trying to win against Obama, but unfortunately it's all like diminishing returns, and Obama gets elected as a senator.
Yes.
Now, after all this, Obama obviously leads to the Obama presidency. Unfortunately, Star Trek does. You could say that Star Trek liberalizes some people, but I'm not going to even make that argument. I'm just going to say that Obama becomes president because, well, he was a senator, became president. That's all.
Star Trek died so that Obama could soar.
Actually, yeah. I mean, the last time Star Trek was good was maybe the end of DS9. So, and Voyager was just a side story. So, we're at the Obama presidency. Now, everyone...
Oh, we're still going.
Oh, yeah, we're still going. Basically, everyone is saying, thanks, Obama, both literally and sarcastically. And everyone's pretty much becoming complacent over the years of 2008 to 2016. Because when we look at it, it did look a little chaotic. A lot of other stuff. In recent terms, it's not that bad, the term from 2008 to 2016. But these 8 years of complacence, just people going back and forth, being assholes to each other. We have 2016 when Obama...
Boss baby.
A boss baby, obviously. Boss baby has to... he can't run for election anymore. And so we have all these Republicans and all these Democrats up for this new, fresh stage. Unfortunately, we end up with Hillary on terms of whatever conspiracy you would like to put there as the front runner. This is also helpful because Obama did also keep her as Secretary of State, among a bunch of other things. And she ends up being the primary for the Democratic Party. Out of Trump somehow, for some reason, comes into the election primary. No one really thinks much of him, but he ends up gaining the voice of the voters. And while everyone thinks he's a joke, he ends up staying in those debates, ends up winning those debates. And somehow, out of sheer tour de force of what only he could go through, he becomes the Republican primary candidate.
It's been a while since I've seen those debates. I remember them being incredibly entertaining.
Yes.
But I don't even know if you would say Trump won any of the debates.
He didn't win. It was
just that
he just
from
he won
a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view, he won the people over. And so he uses this same thing within the several debates he did with Hillary. Now, while losing the popular vote, he ends up winning the electoral vote. No one believes, there are polls showing that he's going to Hillary wins by 99%.
Yeah,
totally
famous Huffington Post prediction.
Wholly destroyed Trump's surprise win, and we can attribute this to the Trump presidency. And the Trump presidency, along with all these memes, along with the direct impact with all the crazy things we're having in 2020.
Sure, but it definitely led to
fuel of the fire to all these different things to be explosive.
It led to Shia LaBeouf's greatest moment of fame.
Yes. It went to many of these great, I'd say great in quotations, 4 years. So we went from the Henry VIII, king of, I forget what dynasty he was, Tudors? Bryce is going to crucify me on this. But
he's going to kill you.
Yeah, so we went from We went from couldn't get the good puss to the Church of England to the popularity of both sci-fi and the creation of America, which both then culminate into Star Trek, which then culminate to Voyager, which then culminate to Seven of Nine, which then culminates to her marriage, which then culminates to a political scandal, which then culminates to Obama, which then culminates to Obama's presidency, which then culminates to thanks Obama, which then culminates to Trump, which then culminates to now. Everything is because Henry VIII could not get that good puss.
All right. Well, you could. Okay, so let's see.
Now,
Henry VIII's search for love, split from the church, and I would say the church was pushing down on scientists during the time of Henry VIII. Might not have been directly like because of it, but it's fine because it led to sci-fi. It's a split. You need both of those things happening at the same time in order to get to present day. So, okay, that makes sense. Sci-fi becoming big, Star Trek in America, Seven of Nine marrying Jack Ryan. But let's see. Is Jack Ryan's downfall really related to Star Trek other than the fact that
it's not related to Star Trek?
His wife was the actress.
His wife was the actress, which makes it a much bigger. The only reason why she was so well known was because of Voyager.
Oh, okay, I see. If it was just a regular person who he was trying to push into being a swinger, then it might not have gotten as much traction in the media or become as big.
Correct.
Okay, I see what you mean then. And then, yeah, that led to Obama's rise as a politician. By the way, when I mentioned Boss Baby, I believe that was because it came out in the year 2016, which you just said, but it came out in 2017. So Teddy and Andrew and Chris and all these other Boss Baby fanatics will also crucify me, and we'll be on the cross together, Gabe. Well, at least next to each other is what I meant.
Yeah, well, we'll do a little bro fist right next to Jesus or something like that.
I don't think we can, Gabe. I don't think we can.
I got to get this nail out to bro fist my homie. Anyway. Now, I could mention the fact that even if Henry VIII didn't split from the Church of England, even if the Renaissance didn't happen, or even though these people like the Man on the Moon, Gulliver's Travels weren't created, the whole theory that everything is a remix. You know the movie. If any listener listens to us, you should watch. It's on YouTube. Everything is a remix. That many of the creations, the inventions made today, are usually found within a few years or within different parts of the world, created by different people, maybe in a different way. If any of these things, like let's say the travels, the Man on the Moon wasn't created, if Star Trek wasn't created, somebody could have easily come out and made a separate type of deal. Now, it couldn't be that wasn't as popularized or these things didn't happen.
Yeah.
But because a lot of different things could happen, like if you were looking at all these alternate universes where these butterfly effects didn't happen,
and I've still seen same results.
You could
maybe one or two nuances.
Yeah, you could see the same results, or you could see a difference. But in this case, this is our reality. This is our timeline, and this is what happened.
There's so many coincidences in your story specifically that I think if one big thing was changed, it probably could have led to a different scenario. But let's see. You could blame, I think, Trump coming into power. He was probably pushing for presidency. He might have pushed for presidency even if Obama or Hillary had nothing to do with, or if they were not relevant. Even if they were not in our timeline, he still would have found other targets. But, I mean, this is our reality. This is what happened. You could trace the dominoes from Henry VIII's search for love to the current era that we live in today. The age of let's go through all of the check marks that you see on hack blog headlines.
Okay.
We got the age of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We have the current year.
Mm-hmm.
We have Trump's America.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
Obama. Thanks. Political theory with into a popular genre.
Mm-hmm.
So we made it political. Scandal.
It's too bad. It's too bad that you can't directly link the church's persecution of scientists with the Anglican Church in Britain's persecution of Puritans, because then you could create a link between science fiction and the creation of America.
That'd be so much fun. I mean, wouldn't be that the the split from the church where people were saying instead of blasphemy, it was just saying science fiction. I don't know. It's a whole different thing. Like what
is science science fiction the 1500s version of fake news?
Probably. Like they allowed Dante without excommunicating him. They allowed Dante to make the Inferno, the whole trilogy thing.
Yeah, there were some satirical elements, but I mean, they just took all that stuff as foundation.
Yeah, but they didn't call it really science fiction. They just called it supplementary work.
Maybe it's the kind of thing where even if it goes against our rules, if we like it, we'll give it a pass.
So it was basically the Catholic Church was just a mod. A really butthurt mod, a really stringent mod for the rest of humanity. Okay.
Sort of. I mean, it's why, like, if you look at Soviet film directors, a lot of the most famous and celebrated of the Russian directors of the time, like Sergei Eisenstein and Andrei Tarkovsky, they ultimately had their film careers canceled by the government because they made one or two movies that the state interpreted as being too critical. It's not something we line up with one-to-one. But if you go back in their filmographies, they have movies that did criticize the current agendas and policies of the state government, but either the government didn't notice this stuff, or they didn't mind it because they liked some of the other things about it and they gave it a pass. So how could a religious state like the Roman Church give a blind eye to Dante's Inferno, Dante's Purgatory, Dante's Paradise?
Now, like most people, I've only watched Inferno because that's the only one that sounds
watched.
Okay,
watched.
Sorry, read. He left. The bitch left. Okay. No, I read it. I meant read.
Just stop it.
I meant read. I had to use one of those cliff note type deals where you could actually understand all the fucking references. I feel sorry for all those like commoners who had to read that, who had no fucking idea what he was talking about.
It's not that bad.
It is really bad. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's not that bad.
Nick, you fucking fool, you fucking freak. Do you not know how bad it is to just like you like, let's say of a town where you mention like, I don't know, 12 different people in your book that you have absolutely no idea who the fuck they are if you're like a peasant from the next town over.
Well, hey, I thought that stuff was fun. Whenever I got to a name or a location I was unfamiliar with, I would search it and then I would take in all this history. Well, so it was like watching a story with like endless footnotes of expanded universe material.
Nick, you fucking fool. This is before. Think of before the internet. Think of this in school while you're fucking reading it. If you did not have those like footnotes explained to you, if you did not have like this specialized version where it tells you who the fuck this person is, who this pope was, who any of these people were, you would have been screwed or lost in this whole thing. You would have lost this Dark Souls has more fucking way of explaining this lore than you would have in this thing. In Dark Souls, you would have to fucking grind your fucking way to just find the backstory. Through this, you wouldn't actually need to go into the internet, to an encyclopedia to fucking figure out what this fucking person did or is. Jesus Christ.
Isn't it wonderful? Well, let's think when Divine Comedy came out, the references would have been more relevant at the time. So you could you could give the case that someone during that time when it was released would understand the references, but you would have to be able to read and
read
to be able
a peasant read,
and you'd have to be able to obtain this book, which might cause it might require a journey.
A journey.
And you'd have to be rich enough to purchase it, or have a rich friend who has it or has access to it.
Who could then translate
and then yes, for the centuries after, anybody who obtains this book would have absolutely no context, or they would have no idea what's going on, which is probably why Christian churches would just take the bits that stuck out to them as being interesting without any of the satirical elements.
So they pretty much what they do with their Bible, they nitpicked it.
So how do you feel that centuries of religious persecution and hell fear, Catholic guilt, was the result of, it's just a prank, bro, of a satire?
I mean, it definitely...
It was the result of some Italian being ironic.
I wouldn't say ironic, just more of a self-insert fan fiction, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Self-insert.
I don't know. It feels... It feels strange. We will never get this type of influence with any other fan fiction in the current age that we live in.
I haven't thought about it before, but I think you're right. Divine Comedy is probably the greatest fan fiction of all time.
Yeah.
and then yes, centuries and centuries of people trying to understand this text without immediate access to the internet to be able to look up all these locations and names, suffering and taking entire years of college courses just to understand it. Cut to today, we have instant access to all the information to understand every detail of this text.
Of this fan fiction.
Except nobody is interested enough to actually read it anymore.
Dante is a very interesting individual. I can only think of the one time when my 11th grade class was reading Dante's Inferno.
What?
And
11th grade.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What did you think I said?
11-year-old.
Oh God. 11th grade class was reading Dante's Inferno, and we had the homework to make our own 9 circles of hell, including all the little levels of what torture and what they were being punished for of each level. So I don't know, that's pretty macabre, or however you say that word. I don't remember, like, I wasn't really the trollish type to deal with, so I just put a bunch of shit to get through it. But putting kids to say what tortures and what punishments they were getting is kind of a little it's kind of strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's all about the ideas are they're really out there, like really original vision and visceral visual imagery. Some of the details that are in these cantos, they hold up even today.
Actually, let's think about it. If we're thinking about, like, this is a fan fiction, now you could subscribe to many things that are fan fiction. Let's say, like, cults, they have, let's say it's their own fan fiction around one person, but because they're not self-aware, it's obviously seen as a cult and not a fan fiction. Let's say the whole thing with Joseph Smith could be considered fan fiction, but again, many people believe it is an actual thing. Where you could say that for all these different things, but everyone believes in it, so it becomes a religion. Now, because Dante's Inferno, it's pretty much self-aware in that sense, and everyone uses it as its bits. Like, you could think current fairy tales or current, young adult novels kind of have an effect on some stuff, but it's never to the point where it affects religion. In fact, a lot of the times you have parents who are against a lot of these things. These very conservative parents who hate Harry Potter, who hate
Yeah.
all these different things. Even though a lot of fan fiction from their day has influenced their own church and therefore their own religion, therefore their own worldview.
Right. Right.
So just a lot of stuff.
I mean, yeah, it is their worldview. Plus, if you really get into it, Scientology's foundation was based off of the musings of a sci-fi writer.
Yeah, yeah. If one thing I can think of that like has helped the evangelist movement in America, and I think some of our readers might like this. I mean, watchers. If Dan watches
Watcher
this, is Left Behind. Do you know of Left Behind, Nick?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Ricky used to talk about it a lot.
So Left Behind came out. It was a book series that came out in the 90s. Basically, the premise is all the good people end up being delivered. This is the rapture. They end up being delivered to heaven. And all the people that are left behind are trying to figure out what the fuck to do. And this whole series pretty much ends up people trying to find God, but also they end up following this antichrist leader who seems good but ends up ultimately going to destroy the world. And so you have this weird thing where people are trying to believe in God, so they live in happiness and then also actually try to be good. But the whole thing that ends up being pretty much becomes a haha, we were right to a bunch of evangelists, and it ends up creating a bunch of evangelist spin-offs. I would say even it ends up helping Pure Flix or all these Christian movies that work with that type of scenario. I guess that would be one that can influence a type of religion or worldview with all these born-agains.
I think you're getting at something a little bigger. I can kind of see what you're saying. It's like, depending on the type of believer you are, you could really take a lot of these fiction novels as not justification, but something that can enhance your personal religious beliefs. It's like, yes, it's a fictional story, but if it lines up enough with your beliefs as a person, then it could have a deeper impact on you because you see it as, oh, this is something that could happen if all these events took place. Right. It's just amazing that it's for a series that is so awful. I mean, so
I think
so. Yeah, Ricky used. I think Left Behind killed Ricky's YouTube career.
Oh my God! What? What do you mean?
So this is old school Night Crew, but you might not be aware of it, or maybe you forgot. But Ricky used to have a YouTube show called Shitflix.
Oh my God.
Where he played the reviewer game. All these people we make fun of. He kind of had like 6 or 7 episodes on YouTube. There's someone else he did it with. I don't remember his name at the time. I think Robert. But in any case, the two of them would review films just like a traditional internet critic. And at least for me, it was really hard to get through these because Ricky was let loose and he was in full tangential mode where he would start to get into describing something about the film and then say, funny thing, that actually reminds me of this deeper thing, and then go into a different direction without returning. And it was like that for 2 hours.
Sounds like Ricky.
It sounds like us on our podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway. But the final one that he did, which was significantly longer than his earlier episodes, was the Nick Cage Left Behind film, which was so bad to them, it killed all ambitions for making future episodes. It was just like where can we go from here? It really made Ricky depressed and outraged and dead inside, and it's amazing to see. I still have not watched the full video because of all this tangential stuff, but maybe it has aged over time. I don't think so, but I know people who have seen the whole thing are out there, and it is a historical relic. And then he also mentioned he also talked about all the books and said that whenever he goes into Goodwill to go book hunting, the majority of books are always Stephen King and Dan Brown novels or novels from the Left Behind series. So they have an audience.
Well, the only other ones I can think of is John Travolta. I think tried to get his Elon Hubbard, Scientologist guy's thing to be played out in Battlefield Earth.
Yeah,
That's
but
one.
that was a
But
masterpiece.
yeah, that was a masterpiece that obviously I learned
Mm-hmm.
to deal with at least.
But yeah, in all seriousness, though, it's like we talk about bad movies. There are the ones that make you miserable and the ones that make you entertained, and that is absolutely and completely in the second category.
I mean, otherwise, is there any other film that or thing that is Christianity? Pretty
You can
much.
get into the what about the Narnia series?
And the Narnia series,
That's
that's like didn't the Narnia series come out like in the early 1800s or something?
no, but it's 1900s.
No, yeah, the
It's
19.
around the time the Lord of the Rings books, so
Eh,
early 1900s.
no, I don't think. I think it was. It didn't really make a big influence. Maybe an influence on writers, but not an
Well,
influence in the terms of
I just
worldviews.
I just brought it up because there's a lot of
Christian themes.
Christian imagery and stuff in there. I don't know if you would be able to call it fan fiction
I,
because all of the morals and stuff, all the themes, they're more of like it's inspired by Christianity, but it's not
like
Christianity.
I do think that at least in the Western hemisphere, the Western culture, like they even told us in schools that when they're making a story, there's always some type of Christ figure in the thing. Like they literally taught this us
Mm-hmm.
in middle school. Now it could be true, but there's also plenty of different sacrificial figures that give up themselves for the sake of others. If you know
Yeah.
about the zeitgeist, you know that there are several things like Christ who end up giving up their lives to save humanity, the world,
Sure,
etc.
sure.
So
It's a cliche.
it's a cliche
Every,
that you need
everything
to
is a
know.
copy, as you say,
Yeah. So again,
or a remake. But going back to this real quick, is it possible that Narnia is a rewrite? And there was originally a version that was more explicit in that it was just Bible fan fiction, because 50 Shades of Grey started out as Twilight fan fiction until the author decided to change some of the names and settings to make it more standalone. So, did Narnia start out as Bible fan fiction and then the settings and names were changed around?
I don't know.
Think about it.
I've
If kids think about it, if it's a series where Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe specifically, like a bunch of kids went into a wardrobe and appeared in biblical times, and Aslan is Jesus, and they were just hanging around while the Romans were doing their shit.
when did Alice in Wonderland come out?
That was older, a lot older.
Well, maybe
I think
maybe.
1800s.
Well, I think that could easily be a fan fiction of that because what you got an evil queen, you got a small child going into some type of hole.
Yeah, it goes into a mirror in the second book.
Yes, they see all these different things. They're not trying to get captured by a queen. Don't know how a lion comes to it. I've actually never seen the full Alice in Wonderland film or even read the story. I've only played Alice into Madness, the American McGee computer game series. It's pretty fun. So,
Yeah.
no, I could definitely see it catapulting off of the Alice in Wonderland original story as a fan.
I think it's a little weak, but
Eh,
but the part of going through like a portal into a fantasy world, that part.
Isekai!
Oh man,
It's an Isekai!
they're the same person when they're in the other world, though. But basically,
that's still an Isekai, though.
yeah, is every fantasy an isekai?
I mean,
Only if they start in the real world.
I mean,
So
well, it depends. Like, could you consider the story of Jesus as Isekai if he was God from a greater plane and he decided
my god,
he decided to be in a body of a human?
I guess you could.
Oh my god.
If you if heaven is the real world and then he isekai'd into the shit world, then yeah,
Oh my god.
it's religion are all isekais. All prophets are isekais. They're all isekai protagonists.
They all
Muhammad,
They all come with
Buddha.
their own anime openings. But there's no ending.
It's true.
It just keeps opening to new chapters.
Yep. You get endless character songs, all the different opening and ending songs.
You got all the crazy fans and the repeat the replete the
fan dojins.
the lines from word to word.
Oh my gosh. How does it feel that your existence is a joke?
I mean, I laugh at it because it is a joke. So,
or put it this way: how do you feel that culture is
a joke?
It can any aspect of culture can be destroyed if you just go into full derp mode.
I feel derp. No, that's pretty much it. I mean, is there anything else to say, or have we fully worn out this course of thought?
I think so. I think we're out.
All right. Well, I think this was a fun little experiment. We got away from the top tens, and we were actually able to go over an hour with this.
Well, all right. Cut out the bathroom break.
All right.
So it'll be 50 minutes.
Right.
Because you were in the bathroom for 10 minutes.
No, 2. You were gone for like 5.
You were in the bathroom for 75 minutes.
2 minutes.
Listen to the footage. You were in there for 75 minutes.
I'm sure. Good job. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming with us with our historical butterfly effects and our little tangent into Bible fiction or real fan fiction. I don't know.
The second half of this podcast was a complete mess, Gabe.
It was completely improvisational. I didn't really expect us getting into it. I guess that kind of shows how superior my little thing was through it, because we went into such a great discussion about the Bible and all this other stuff.
Nice guys finished last.
Well,
I think it was more your tangents didn't really make sense to me unless I like squinted at it.
I mean,
but I decided to be engaged regardless, and it was a struggle. So this really was an experiment.
Yeah. All right.
I felt like a politician, like not fully understanding what I'm saying, but saying it with enough confidence to give that impression.
And also the very spurious pauses before you speak, like Captain Kirk.
Yes, Americans
and Obama.
We will overcome Gabe's podcast.
And thank you for listening, listeners. This is your host, Gabe.
And Nick. 8-Bit Nicky.
And we hope to see you again soon.
Please no.
Yes.